Welcome to the first episode of the New Fashion Conservatives pod. My name is Justin Phillips, and with me, the man on X known as Shadow Governor Voss.
Full disclosure, Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier here with me to talk about Wisconsin politics and the state of the conservative movement within the state right now. Let's talk a little bit about how we brought this together.
Where did we get all these great ideas to do a podcast? I mean, at this rate, everyone's got a podcast. Exactly. So why not us?
Exactly. And I remember just talking to you a couple months ago saying, am I an egotistical a-hole for thinking that I should be the one doing this?
No, not at all.
And then you said, I have all of this podcast equipment in my cart on Amazon. I am so excited to do this. Let's rip it. So here we are, two fellas with years of policy and campaign experience in the state, ready
to give opinions.
Exactly.
And we have lots of them. Now, I want to start just because, yes, I did have it in my Amazon cart, and I was going to do my own podcast for a while. And because I originally got on Twitter, not as a Robin Voss shill. I actually originally got on Twitter because I was like, I'm going to do news. I'm going to be a journalist. I want to report, impartially. Well, that didn't last very long, and it wasn't as fun. So I understand why journalists just become hacks, because it's just more fun that way. And it's honestly more fun to be a subversive journalist, which I don't claim to be a journalist. I don't think you claim to be a journalist.
We're not going to claim on here to be journalists, but I feel like there's going to be some times coming up where we need to be journalists because the Milwaukee Journal is so bad. And we'll get to that over the course of our next couple of podcast episodes.
It's taking everything within me not to comment on every story we're going to bring up. This is the pilot.
Exactly.
We're just introducing ourselves to the world, Wisconsin.
Indeed.
We're not journalists. I wanted to do this podcast for a while, but I was like, I don't really want to take that step, But I got on Twitter originally just to essentially get my opinions out, and if people agree with them, fantastic. And I've gotten to the point where that's not as fulfilling. I mean, it still is. I still tweet, obviously. I love Twitter and X, whatever. But I think the podcast, it's another level of the long-form style that maybe hash out some more broad topics that I cannot fit in 280 characters. Although, yes, I have Twitter Pro or whatever, so I can do more. But I like finishing, putting everything in one tweet. I don't necessarily like writing giant, epithets or soliloquies.
And it's something we want to have here is, long-form discussions with a variety of folks within the conservative sphere in Wisconsin, talk about what's going on. And then, of course, bring you some candy, too. We want to talk about those ridiculous, goofy stories that are happening
plenty of them
right now. Exactly. And, besides not being journalists, we all also need to recognize that we're not failed stand-up comedians. And we're not a failed business journal reporters with a cutesy Soros-funded blog. We're two guys sitting right now in a basement with some equipment talking to you.
Really, and to expand upon that, we're not Badger State resistance. We're not Wisconsin right now. Mm-hmm. I think we're somewhere in between. And I think part of the reason I also like the podcast idea, not because I get to, go on rants and, hop on a soapbox every once in a while, but there is, and I know we've talked about this a lot personally, off the air, but there is a huge void, at least in Wisconsin, between Badger State resistance and Wisconsin right now. And while they're bickering back and forth about, all kinds of things, are we actually solving any problems? Are we actually moving? Are we moving? It just seems like you're first down, you get a false start, you get back, put back 5 yards, and then there's another penalty. And we're never actually moving the ball forward. We're never driving a narrative forward. And now, to be fair, I do think Wisconsin right now obviously does write a lot of good stories, and I think they should continue to do so. But I think we need to also I just think there needs to be more voices, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't think they would disagree.
No, no. I hope to collaborate with them in some ways in the future.
Jim, Jessica, you're more than welcome.
Other Justin, I'm gonna start calling him Other Justin. But no, you're right. They do have a role. They do have a voice, and I think we can inject ourselves into that successfully. And we're not going to be shills for one side or the other. We're not going to be hyper focused on Robin Voss.
Well, I will definitely have like a little, we're still developing segments for the show. We're still like, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about one topic for 30 minutes with a guest. Are we going to do like then a couple other 5-minute segments? We're going to have some games, all kinds of stuff. I'm definitely going to have at least every once in a while a little Robin Voss section. Maybe, if they're on the floor and he has a little fiery speech, might have to, dissect that a little bit.
Let's go.
Yeah, so we'll have to do that. But I also think that we will have to talk about not just the Wisconsin Right Nows and the Badger State Resistance of Wisconsin, but WisGOP versus Turning Point. And, I know there's a lot of people we talk to that have varying opinions on both. I'm probably in between on a lot of those. But I think we definitely have to call out. I want the Republican Party to succeed, but we also need to be realists. We need to, if we actually want to rewrite some history for the last 6 years of basically ineptitude and basically Ron Johnson and our Lord and Savior John Leiber. Okay, so other than that, I would love to get back to some winning.
This is true, and I think we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. That whether you're knocking doors or campaigning with Turning Point or Americans for Prosperity or the YRs, all great organizations that are contributing. And I lost my train of thought there, so we're going to have to come back.
And yes, there's a lot of people, and I know we have lots of ideas for guests, these long form discussions, and I know that we've been talking about this podcast for 3 months now, trying to manage schedules, gets little things here and there. And then just working up the time to actually sit down and record something. But I think there's a lot of people we want to have on open discussions, people that we agree or disagree with. I'm not trying to call out anyone by name, but maybe have some people on for friendly debates.
Yep, 100%.
I kind of come from a notion that yes, I probably lean more to the party, being a party guy, but I think Turning Point and some of these other third-party groups have a place. I think they are well-intended. I just want more evidence on the execution. I also think they're kind of like the new and shiny thing. So, which, again, not necessarily a bad thing, but I just want to make sure that we're being effective, responsible with the money, considering how money is so tight right now. So I really want to flush that out because, frankly, it's my own fact-finding mission because I think I hear lots of things being tossed around about, Wisconsin GOP as well as Turning Point that I don't think are always true. Somewhere more in the middle. So I want to have those people on to, talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's our first long form is going to be all about this.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be, I think, on the state of kind of the WisGOP currently. And I think that it's going to be a good conversation, which is why you should definitely listen to it right after we're done with this pilot, because you love the pilot so much already. I can just tell. They're chomping at the bit. You guys can just go right over to the long form. But that's kind of, I think, our general overview of, what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take some time. We're kind of playing this by ear, where originally when I came to this, I wanted to get everything ready. Oh, okay, show notes. We're going to get every single story. We're going to do episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. I just want to get something out there.
Indeed.
When I started Twitter, I just started tweeting a bunch of stuff, basically just calling out Adrian Melby for being insane on Twitter. So that's, it happens. Someone has to defend Robin Voss, and no one else was doing it online, so I had to beat back Adrian Melby a little bit, but I'm sure she'll probably listen to this and be enraged. But
yeah, no, it's going to be some learn by doing. We're going to have line up some great guests for you make this really worth the time.
Who do you want to have on?
Oh my
Just
gosh.
Anybody just off the top of your head?
Already mentioned a good friend of mine, someone I've known for close to 13 years now, and that's John Leiber.
John Leiber, yes, our one lone statewide state constitutional office.
Yeah.
I love John. I didn't know John before, he ran, and obviously there was the whole thing where, wait, was that the Orlando race? No, Orlando was Secretary of State, wasn't he?
Correct.
No, was it treasurer? I'm already forgetting this.
I think so. I think he was.
Yes, because then he got the endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
But wow.
But Orlando is another one. I met him first in 2008. It's how far back I go in politics and how far back he goes, and to see him still involved, I'm always heartened by people that I knew from my first campaigns to know they're still out there grinding, again, rowing the boat in the same direction.
I do know that there's been a little controversy there, but I would love to. I think getting into the Milwaukee GOP drama is probably at least its own episode.
We'll save it for that. But no, like I said, there's a lot of folks out there. There's a lot of think tanks in Wisconsin that they've got an audience that we should
tap into.
Exactly. From Will to the Badger Institute, MacGyver.
Why aren't they doing podcasts?
CRG. That's why we're here. Frank, that's one of the things we talked about is there isn't really anyone else in this space that fits in.
At least that I know. Maybe there's some podcasts up in Green Bay besides Badger State Resistance. Or, we have talk radio too, which kind of takes the middle ground. But, talk radio has been around forever, and they're going to be around forever after us. But, one thing I really wanted to talk about a little bit was our name.
Mm-hmm.
New Fashioned Conservative Podcast Pod. Obviously sitting here having a little drinky drink. Nothing wrong with that. But I also think I like the idea of being new fashioned, old fashioned. Love old fashions. A little bit younger demographic here we're going for.
Yeah.
We love our boomers. We love them. But we need to harness the, Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, I guess Gen Alpha, and eventually when they become voting age. But we need to harness them as much as we can, and we got to be in the mediums that they're at.
Exactly.
And new fashioned, I love old fashions, but we're kind of trying to go for the new route, a little younger demographic.
We're not out here. We're not going to say that we're going to try and replace talk radio. There's the talk radio influence in southeastern Wisconsin is beyond measure, and I listen to all of them, frankly. But this is where we want to be something different. This is a couple of guys, and we're, like I said, we got that third mic ready to go.
Yeah, we're ready.
That rotating third chair we're going to have, but
come down to the basement.
But a couple of guys just sitting here talking about what we feel is going right and what isn't going right for the Wisconsin conservative movement and the party and the legislature, and how we can defeat Tony Evers, how we can rid ourselves of Tammy Baldwin.
Well, and unfortunately, I don't think that one's going to happen.
Well, and most importantly, at least in my opinion, get rid of Kirkland's signature Leslie Knope, Sarah Godlewski.
Fair enough. Well, it's interesting, and I am chomping at the bit to get at topic, so I really don't want to get into anything super in depth yet. But there is, I would love to be able to use our platform as much as we can on the state issues. I still think we'll obviously talk about national stuff. It's inevitable that the national stuff obviously dominates everything. And frankly, right now, there's not a ton going on in the state. There's some stories. Obviously, Hannah Dugan has been taking a lot of the spotlight, but state budget's been kind of slow. So there's not a whole lot to really report. So we'll talk about that, obviously, but the national stuff will inevitably come in. Anybody that knows my Twitter knows that I'm a border hawk. I love talking about the border. So inevitably that might slip in, maybe from the state perspective, especially because Hannah Dugan is really at the forefront right now.
Mm-hmm.
of the national, Wisconsin being the national spotlight. So that will inevitably come out. The national stories will come in. But ultimately, this is about driving Wisconsin down to the 5-yard line and scoring and getting a new governor in.
And giving a voice to those legislators that, look, I said, love talk radio, but we want to give them 30 minutes to discuss what they want to discuss, not have to clip it into a 7-minute short side interview. And so we can give that voice, give them that opportunity, give the conservative leaders in the state of Wisconsin that opportunity to get their message and reach a whole new audience with this podcast. And
I mean, I love you listen to Jay in the morning or, Benjamin Yount now, which honestly I need to do more of. I haven't done as much as I should now that O'Donnell has gone to the afternoon hour. But allowing a leggy to actually sit down and talk for 20, 30 minutes about, and if they want to, I don't know who will even want to. I mean, I know the state budget's going on right now, probably preoccupied with that, and they probably don't need to talk to some hooligans in their basement or on Zoom or whatnot about, God knows what. But I would love to get to the point where we can have that. And I know we've talked about goals about the podcast. I don't really have any goals other than have fun, do this for ourselves. But I do have one goal. It's not listeners. It's not downloads, whatever. If that comes, great. I would love to be at the same point next year. So whatever, May, June, and interview someone for governor.
Exactly.
I think that's a good goal. Plus, we might even have to do it a little bit before because convention.
Yes.
Depending on how the governor's primary goes, which obviously we only have one candidate right now. Depending on how that goes, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the field clears and we only have one person, and we just interview our candidate, which would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yep. Having that voice and being out there and having that kind of reach, I think, would be beyond any expectations I have.
Yeah. So I definitely agree. And I think that's probably it for a pilot episode. So thank you all for, coming in and listening just to two guys in a basement talking about politics. There's going to be a lot more where this came from. So make sure to stay tuned. We're going to try to do this as consistent as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of people's schedules, and we'll play it by ear, but we want to be as consistent as possible. I don't even know if we've discussed Mondays releasing.
Yeah, let's do it. But
Mondays?
Hey, make sure, regardless of when we release our next podcast, be sure to like, share, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Show notes will be found on our Substack, which we'll link to in the bio for this pod. Be sure to follow us on X, Rumble, Truth Social, Instagram, Facebook at New Fashion Pod. If you want to send us something, send us some memes. Send us, fill our DMs with memes.
Memes, ideas, topics, questions. I mean, anything. It could be anything. Just not spam. Just not anything illegal.
Anything.
Just keep it, PG-13 here, guys. But give us topics, anything that we want to talk about. I would love to do some engagement. There's a segment I really want to do called Buy, Sell, or Hold. They give us takes. We have to buy, sell, or hold them. You're not really supposed to hold, though. You're supposed to buy or sell because then you're kind of, pansy, being a pansy, and not picking a decision. Come on. Make it an executive decision, yes or no.
But yeah.
So, we got a lot of good ideas. So, guys, tune in as much as you can. Weekly podcast, New Fashion Conservative podcast. Justin Phillips, Shadow Governor Voss, signing out.